Andy.
Morning, church. Thanks for coming back for part two. Again, I want to wish all the fathers out there and granddads out there happy Father's Day. So today we again are continuing in our series in 1 John by looking at verse 16. Last week we really did a close look at verse 15 and all the ways that we are called to love the world in a godly way and some of the problematic ways that we might be loving the world in an ungodly way. And today we are going to be really taking a close look at verse 16. We're going to be looking into the three specific sins that may be trapping and ensnaring us. It's going to be a difficult sermon to hear, a difficult sermon to preach today. Let me just put that out there in advance. It might get a little bit uncomfortable, and I'm hoping the Holy Spirit convicts you this morning of some specific areas that you might need to change. Right? That's not necessarily a bad thing. So sorry, but also not sorry. Right? Because I'm sorry if this sermon makes you feel bad, but I'm not sorry that the gospel is being preached. Right? We at this church, we're honest about sin. Right? We don't just want to be a church that pretends that sin is only like universal, that it's only a macro problem because of the world. Sin is a personal problem. Right? It's our problem. It's a you problem. It's a me problem. And the only answer to that problem is through the blood of Christ. Amen? So by the end of the sermon, if you feel like, man, this is futile, after last week, after this week, it's unreasonable for God to place these expectations on us. So what's the point of even trying? I pray that you come back for part 3. Right? It isn't over yet. Please come back next week or at least listen to the finale on our YouTube channel. Which will show us how actually not to be discouraged, but rather be encouraged by John's words in verses 12 to 17. Please finish the trilogy, right? You can't just stop watching at the second part after The Godfather 2. You can't just stop after the second Lord of the Rings movies or The Matrix. You got to finish all 3. Okay, so please come back next week so that we can learn to be encouraged after these past 2 weeks. So again, in the previous verse, in verse 15, John gives us a command: do not love the world. But a big problem in our society is really getting a clear definition of what that means. Everyone comes from different backgrounds and different upbringings and culture, and oftentimes we allow these to influence and define what is godly or worldly behavior. So last week we did a general study of worldliness, but today we're going to examine John's 3 clear definitions of what it means to love the world and to be worldly in verse 16, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Last week, we established that what makes the world bad is not just the physical, material universe. Is there anything wrong with being human? No. But hedonism is where you say what we do and what we think is ultimate. Is there anything wrong with pleasure? No. But hedonism means that pleasure becomes our ultimate goal. So verse 16, John uses the word lust twice, right? In the Greek, the word lust literally means not just a desire, but an over-desire. A desire that is beyond healthy or normal. It's an over-desire that becomes destructive and sinful. And in these verses, John is referring to the over-desires of the body. There's nothing wrong with the eye. There's nothing wrong with the body, but it's the over-desires of these things, right? What we see, our appearance, images, the over-desires of the ego, that's worldliness. And when these normal things become elevated to the place where they sit on the throne of our lives, right? They become idols that we worship instead of God, then the rest of our lives fall into chaos, and the consequences of sin soon follow. Flesh, eyes, and pride. Now, one interesting thing that I uncovered through my research is a detail that stood out, is that the devil's traps, they're the same, right? It's the same stuff he's been using in Genesis, right? If we think all the way back to the way beginning, the creation account that happened in the Garden of Eden, Eve is exposed to the same 3 temptations: flesh, eyes, and pride. Genesis tells us that Eve noticed that the tree was good for food to eat, right? That the lust of the flesh was partly there to satisfy her hunger. She saw that the tree was pleasant to the eyes and was drawn to it by sight. That's lust of the eyes. And the serpent also told her, if you eat of this fruit, you can be like God, knowing the difference between good and evil. That's pride of life. And then we fast forward 5,000 years later to Jesus in the wilderness, where he's fasting for 40 days. It's the same three tricks. First, he starts off with lust of the flesh. He tells Jesus, if you're the Son of God, see these stones here? Make them into bread. Remember, Jesus, again, he'd been fasting for 40 days. So when it says that he was hungry, that's an understatement. How many of you guys have attempted fasting? 3 days? 1 week? I mean, for me, it's hard to even fast for 1 day, right? You just want to throw in the towel and say, oh, sorry, God, I can't take it anymore, right? Imagine 40 days without food. Satan comes along and says, hey, you're the Son of God. Turn these stones into bread, right? Turn this into a delicious cancha, maybe a nice little baguette. Satan appeals to us, to Jesus' hunger with the lust of the flesh. Then the Bible says that Satan takes him to a place where he could see all the kingdoms of the world in their glory and splendor. He displays it to him and tells Jesus, this could all be yours if you bow down to me. Lust of the eyes. And finally, Satan takes Jesus to the highest point of the temple and says, if you're God, jump down. Surely the angels will catch you. Surely you'll just float to the ground. Pride of life. Fast forward 2,000 plus years more to where we're at today. Same three tricks, church. Almost all sin comes down to these three categories: lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And all three of these have one end goal in mind: to make us feel good, to help bring an end to whatever negative emotion or negative sensation we're feeling, and to replace it with something better or something that feels good instead. Right? Satan came to Jesus in one of his weakest points to tempt him. And oftentimes, Satan does the same strategy with us. He attacks us when we're tired. He attacks us when we're anxious, when we're weak. When life has got us down, Satan comes along and puts the bait out there and tells us, just take this. It'll make you feel better. It'll help you forget about your stress. So let me ask you, church, how do you cope with your stress? Statistics tell us that our society is more unhappy, more anxious, and more depressed than we've ever been as a nation. Our stress levels are maxed out. They're jumping off the charts, and as humans, our natural response is to find some way to cope, right? To find some sort of coping mechanism to help bring those stress levels down to a healthy or at least a more manageable place. But as most things in life, there are good ways and bad ways to deal with stress. Right? Most of my own sessions with my therapist revolve around helping me to identify my stress triggers and figuring out healthy strategies to help me cope with these feelings. Right? Things like taking a walk, breathing exercises, hanging out with friends, listening to worship music, journaling. But of course, there are unhealthy strategies too. And John commands us in verse 15, do not love the world or anything in the world. And part of what we're going to do today is to draw these connections between the idols that we do love, right? If we're honest with ourselves, there are idols that we love. And how we turn to those idols to help us cope and make us feel better instead of turning to God. So let's get into the first one. What does John mean by lust of the flesh? Our flesh deals with physical appetites. In the Bible, our flesh isn't just the physical parts of us, it's everything that we are. It's our minds, it's our emotions, it's our will. It's everything apart from Christ. It's the thing that is apart from God and apart from Christ that makes us blind to the truth. So lust of the flesh is the desire to satisfy yourself at God's expense. Let me repeat that. The lust of the flesh is the desire to satisfy yourself at God's expense. It is the satisfaction of normal desires in a way that is forbidden by God. And this morning, I want to talk about two areas that a lot of people struggle with. I know that there is a long, exhaustive list of the sins of the flesh, and that could be probably its own 10-part sermon series, but it's Father's Day, and we got a picnic to go to, so we're just going to focus on two big ones. First, I'm going to talk about food and drink. And second, I'm going to talk about sex and masturbation and pornography, because that one is actually a combination of the sin of the flesh and a sin of the eyes. But first, food and drink. Right? These are gifts given to us by God. They were made for our enjoyment in moderation. I mean, I don't know if you ever consider this for a moment. When God created us, he could have created us without taste buds, right? So that we would get zero enjoyment out of the consumption. It could have just been a robotic action to keep us going. But he created us with taste buds because we're meant to enjoy food and we're meant to enjoy drink. The problem is that some of us, myself included, we don't know when to hit the brakes, right? We eat and we drink to excess, past the point of moderation to an unhealthy place. And this is where we commit the sin of gluttony. It's where food and drink can potentially become idols in our lives. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you've had a terrible day, super stressful day. Maybe your boss chewed you out, or maybe the kids were acting crazy, right? Maybe you have some sort of family drama, whatever it is. It's been a rough day, but now it's nighttime. Kids are in bed, house is quiet. How many of you guys are guilty of treating yourself with a nice bowl of ice cream? Right? End of a long day, ooh, delicious. Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry don't make it easy, right? That temptation is real. Now again, for a lot of us, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just a bowl of ice cream. But if that bowl of ice cream consistently becomes your way of escaping, right? If that bowl of ice cream becomes your way of just momentarily forgetting your problems, your way of avoiding your responsibilities, then it becomes problematic. And for some of you, it's not ice cream. For some of you, it's an ice cold beer, a glass of wine, cigar, maybe smoking something a little bit stronger. Whatever it is, it's our way for us to feed our fleshly appetites. And when we turn to those things as a substitute for God, to deal with our pain instead of looking to God himself, it becomes a problem. When we use those things to control our lives, when we use those things as a strategy for coping, when we use food or the lack of food to handle life, when you use drink as a way of dealing with the pain, it becomes a problem. And what happens is that it is a slippery slope that ends oftentimes in addiction. It becomes the thing that you live for. It becomes that which you are actually trying to control your life and master your life. It's an over-desire of the body. It's when a good thing, like eating and drinking, becomes the ultimate thing and it turns into an idol. Second, John warns us against the lust of the eyes. Now, what are some over-desires of the eyes? Many of them have to do with appearance and reputation. For example, beauty. It is worldly to look at money, at status, at names, at clothing, at a figure and say, that is what I live for. That is what controls me. Right? For some of us, we go berserk if a situation comes up that makes us look bad in front of others. Maybe your boss calls you out in front of your coworkers, and within seconds, you're plotting revenge against them. Right? Maybe your spouse criticizes you in front of your in-laws, and immediately you're, oh, we're going to talk later tonight. Maybe someone accidentally just spills ketchup on you at a barbecue, and you are furious at them. Lust of the eyes also deals with materialism and love of money, the need for money, the desire for money, the way you spend or hoard your money. It's also connected to the sin of covetousness, right? To desire something that you already have enough of. Wanting what others have. more and more and more. Now, I want to take a moment here to address the danger of technology and smartphones and the internet. Because nowadays, because of AI and target marketing, every time we open our phones, every time we use an app, all we ever see in front of us are advertisements for the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes. Right? They got your number, guys. They got my number. They know specifically what we like. Right? Now, I'm not saying it's time to wear tinfoil hats in our living room, but it's no secret that companies are using technology to track what we like and present to us advertisements that are specifically catered to you. The world algorithm, the world system is constantly putting in front of us things that get us to be dissatisfied, things that make us feel unhappy with what we have. And I know you guys have experienced this firsthand, right? Let's say that you're talking with someone about a camping trip, right? Oh, sleeping bag technology has gotten great these days. Or maybe I need to get a new tent, right? Because the new tents, they just pop up and close down super easy. And all of a sudden, you log into your email, and lo and behold, so many advertisements for outdoor recreational gear, right? They're listening. Now, in addition to online marketing and advertising, technology in 2024 sets traps for us in other ways. How many of you guys have some sort of social media account? Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, right? Or maybe some of you are older like me and you're still rocking a Facebook account. Here's a sad reality. We live in a time where we voluntarily overshare about our lives, right? So I can go to any one of your social media pages and I could learn a whole lot about you. I could see what you ate today probably, what car you drive, what clothes you wear. I can see where you like to go on vacation, if you're married or if you're single, if you have kids, what kind of activities that you like to engage in. And again, all of it I take in with my eyes. And what inevitably ends up happening is that we start to compare our lives with what we see. Right, these curated images. And it becomes one huge game of, well, anything you can do, I can do better. Right? Oh man, I didn't even know this thing existed, but now that I see it, I got to have it. I didn't even have a desire for this before, but now that I see it, I want it. They did it, so I want to do it too. They bought it, so I want to buy it. Or even better yet, I'm going to buy something a little bit better, so when they see me, they'll know I'm better than them. And it becomes a huge competition. And this problem gets even more extreme when we go outside of our own personal spheres, and now we're comparing ourselves to celebrities, to athletes and their experiences, their material goods, people who have a whole lot more disposable income that we have, and it just breeds this dissatisfaction in our lives. Social scientists actually came up with a term for this called the mirror effect, right? I want to mirror what I see. I want to live like that. I want to be like them. And this is all about the world of the flesh and the desire of the eyes. But remember, church, we were made in the image and likeness of God. This means we're supposed to mirror God. This means we're supposed to look at God, fix our eyes on Jesus, and to follow in his example. Am I saying that having a phone is sinful? No. I'm saying that we are. And the phone in the hand of a sinner becomes a big problem if you're not aware of its potential for harm. Now let me address what is one of the biggest sources of sin in our modern world, pornography. Might get a little bit uncomfortable in here. But worldwide, this is a $100 billion industry. Okay, statistically speaking, 66% of men and 39% of women have viewed porn at least once in the last 12 months. So whether you want to believe it or not, whether you're ready to admit it or not, it's a problem. This might be the devil's coup de grace, his Mona Lisa, his masterpiece combination to get people to sin in the eyes and the flesh all at once. Right? It displays for us the most sinful desires of our hearts just a few mouse clicks away, just a few taps away. And before you know it, We're full on sprinting down the road of temptation because our senses get overstimulated, right? And more oftentimes than not, we are then led to the sin of masturbation to satisfy those needs of our flesh. And sadly, this also becomes a coping mechanism for many of us, right? When we feel lonely, when we feel undesirable, maybe you've gotten into a fight with your spouse, right? The fallen world, it makes it so easy to turn to pornography, to make us just forget momentarily about these negative feelings, just for a brief moment to numb ourselves to all that pain, to that rejection. And we turn to it over and over like a drug, right? We begin to worship it, and we put it on the throne, and we look to those to satisfy us instead of God. But the problem is that pornography, like all other idols of the flesh, it lies. It gives us the promise that everything's going to be okay. It gives you the promise that your problems are going to go away. And they might, but just for a brief moment, just for a short stint of time, which makes us then seek these idols with increasing frequency and intensity. Because that which satisfied in the past, it doesn't quite do it for us anymore. And before we know it, we're in a cycle of addiction. The idols of the flesh and the idols of the eyes, they lie, church. They will always disappoint. They are not God and can never and will never be able to handle and fulfill the responsibility that's meant for God and God alone. There's only one thing that will quench the deep longings of your heart. There's only one thing that will satisfy the hunger of your soul. Only one thing that will fill that black hole of a void in your heart. Right? John 4, verses 13 and 14, Jesus gives us his promise. Everyone who drinks this water, the water of idols, they'll be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. So first, you have to cast down your idols of the flesh in your eyes. You got to uninstall it, deactivate it. If you're addicted, you need to find a recovery program like the ones that we have here Monday nights. You need to do whatever you need to do to destroy the idols and break those chains that you're bound to, because they will never satisfy you. But destroying them is not enough. That's just the first step. Because you can get rid of one idol of the flesh and eyes, but then we'll just as quickly replace it with another. Secondly, after you destroy it, you have to put God on the throne. All those things you look to your idols for to fulfill you, you need to turn to God. He's the only one who satisfies. Lastly, we have the pride of life. This is the over-desire for recognition. It's the over-desire for acknowledgement, the over-desire maybe to need to be right in every argument. It's the inability to own your mistakes. It's an extreme difficulty that you have apologizing. It's a rejection of authority from those that are in a higher position than you. The pride of life is the inability to submit to God's will and instead wanting to be like God and to demand control of your life. Again, I want to address social media and the pride of life, right? Stop for a moment and examine your social media platform. Think about the things that you're posting, right? It's my hope that as a church that we can be more mindful about what we post and why we post it and how it even might affect those around us. Because what are the majority of your posts about? Me. Right? If you're parents, maybe the majority of your posts are about your kids, but that's only in reality because your kids are an extension of you. Right? That's the main way that you present yourself to other people is by, look at how great my kids are. That's because I'm a great parent. So at the end of the day, whether it's through the posts of yourself or your kids or maybe even your pets, it still boils down to me. I'm the center of this universe and everybody needs to see me. Because you know what I really want? I want them to admire me. I want them to covet me. I want them to want to be like me and to imitate me, and you're presenting yourself as a candidate for worship by others that follow you on social media. I mean, just think about that term, follower. How many followers do you have? That has become the metric by which the world judges people's value on social media. Doesn't that sound cultish? Are you following me? Are you following this person? Pride of life. It's everywhere in our lives if you just stop and examine. Allow me to give you some other real-life examples of the pride of life that, let me just outright say, I've been guilty of. For me, the pride of life rears its head most obviously when it comes to customer service. And Amazon, they may be the biggest enabler of this sin of entitlement, right? Provoking the pride of life. Let's say that my package is one day late. I contact customer service. Hey, my package was supposed to be here Tuesday. Now it's going to be here Wednesday? What kind of a business are you running here, Amazon? Check my account. I'm a Prime member. What are you going to do about this? How are you going to fix it? I don't deserve this kind of treatment. Or maybe we go to a business that doesn't have car-side delivery. What? You expect me to get out of my car and walk into the store? You expect me to wait in line with the rest of these peasants? I've got better things to do with my time. You bring it out to me. Or how about this, church? For a lot of others of us, the pride of life rears its head when we get behind the wheels of our car. Right? If you ever need convincing on the sinfulness that a man stores up in his heart, observe the way we respond on the road, especially in LA. Like when a car is going 65 in the fast lane, blood pressure starts going up, right? When a car is taking forever to make a right turn on a green light, you start gripping your steering wheel. You start making comments to yourself. When a person's taking too long to leave a parking spot, what are they doing? I know they see my blinker. What's taking them so long? I've got things to do. You're wasting my time. I have places to be. I have better things that I could be doing than waiting for you. I shouldn't have to wait. I don't deserve this. I deserve better. And the problem with the pride of life and feeling that we deserve more is oftentimes that it's going to lead us right back into the sin of the flesh and the sin of the eyes. Right? We start to think, I deserve something good. And I don't feel good, so I need to do something to change that. Right? So if life isn't going to reward me, if my family's not going to reward me, then I'm just going to reward myself. Because after all, I deserve it. And maybe a few of you are in here are thinking, well, you don't understand, Pastor, and I'm not an addict, right? I don't struggle with the things that you talked about. I'm not addicted to drugs. I don't overeat. I don't watch porn. I pay my taxes. I'm a good person. I'm a good worker. I don't break laws. I try my best to do the right thing. So really, Pastor Andy, objectively speaking, I do deserve it, right? God owes me a good life. And Romans 3 and Isaiah 64 should make it clear what we actually deserve. You and me and everyone in the whole world, let me tell you what you deserve. You deserve wrath. You deserve punishment. You deserve death. You deserve an eternity in hell. And an entire lifetime of your good deeds won't change that. But here's the ironic part. While we're standing on our imaginary pedestals, when we're shaking our fists in the air, protesting to the heavens, I don't deserve to be treated like this. You're absolutely right. Just not in the way that you think you are. I don't deserve this. Correct, you don't. Because you know what? You don't deserve God's love. You don't deserve his forgiveness. You don't deserve his grace, his mercy. You don't deserve any of that. You don't deserve acceptance. You don't deserve adoption. None of us do. But that's the beauty of the gospel, church. You don't deserve it. I don't. But Jesus takes our place while we're still sinners, sinners of the flesh, sinners of the eyes, sinners of the prideful heart. While we're still sinners in the most undeserving of places, Jesus says, I got this. I'll pay the cost. And he takes that shame. He takes the sin and all the wrath that we deserve. And we take his place. All the glory. We get adopted into the family of God. We receive the love and the grace and the blessings that were meant for Christ. Sin of the eyes, sin of the flesh, the pride of life. Where are you being trapped? I want you to know that there is hope for you, brother. There is hope for you, sister. And I pray, I please come back next week to be encouraged. But right now, I want to invite you guys actually to a time of prayer, to a time of repentance. I want to open up the altar. Worship team, if you can come up. If you're tired of being disappointed by your idols, if you're tired of going through the